This is so hard to explain. You've laid down your bass, you've laid down your drums, you've got your acoustic guitars done, and now you're ready for your electric guitars. And you want this awesome, spacious, roomy sound, maybe with a little bit of delay, but definitely some stereo sounds. And you go to your high-Z input, you plug it in, you try to turn one of those faders on one of those soft tube amp sims, and it just snaps right back to the center. Then you go to the internet and you try to find how to record the plugins in stereo. Not an answer. Well, I'm gonna give you an answer. What's up, guys? My name is Steve Kinney. I'm an engineer and a producer, and today we're gonna look at how to get stereo guitars with the UAD plugins. That seemingly has no answer, but I think we've got a great answer here, and this video is gonna be pretty mind-bending. But before we go any further, please check out my Console Classic Sessions pack. It's available now. It's the quickest way to get production-ready sounds that sound awesome right out the gate, and it's super easy to do. It'll get your songwriting session, it'll get your production up and running, so go check it out. Also check out the new Stuito merch. It's really cool, and it's the best way to support this channel. I'd really appreciate it. Leave a comment below, let me know what you guys think of the solution here in this video, and please subscribe, it really helps me out. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so before we actually get into the real solution here, we need to first talk about the existing solutions. So let me open up Console real quick, and we're gonna kind of walk through the existing solution and why that's not really viable with all plugins that they offer. Let's check it out. So currently I have Luna up and running. We're gonna take a look in that in just a second. But right now inside of Console, the current solution that's out there is really only for certain plugins, specifically the Fender Tweed plugin, right? So if I load that up, the current solution that they tell you to run is, they say have the plugin on your Unison input, and then what they want you to do is go right here on the amp and hit off. Now when I do that, a very important thing to note is that the plugin is still active. So the second step that they'll have you do is add another instance on one of the aux channel inserts. And so here we are, right? We're gonna load up the Fender Tweed. So now we've got a second one, and what you do is you copy your settings and put it onto this one, and then you can now pan and do what you want with the mic placement and all that kind of stuff there. Whereas here, you try to pan it and it just won't let you. But since the plugin is active here, the impedance loading is still taking place on the high-Z input, which is the whole point of Unison technology. And then that's feeding the second instance of the plugin, and you're able to monitor and listen. And then what they tell you to do is to then go in your DAW and then add the plugin after the fact. This way you get best of both worlds. You get the high-Z interaction, and then you also get the high-Z interaction of the plugin. So that's the current solution. Now let's look at that same solution again, but for a different amp sim. So here is the Marshall Plexi Classic. This ships with all Apollos, part of the Legacy bundles. And it sounds really cool. It sounds just like a Marshall with the 57 on it. Sounds amazing. So the theory is that what we should be able to do is click this off button. Oh, did you see that? See, I think this solution isn't gonna work. Okay, see, yeah, every time I hit the on and off button, it turns the plugin off, which means the little orange Unison indicator is gone as well, and you can see this in Console. So I turn it on, my knob turns orange, I turn it off, and it's now green, so there's no high-Z interaction. That right there is why there currently is no solution to the problem. But what exactly is the problem? Is there even a problem? The short answer is no, there's no problem. The long answer is yes, there's kind of a bit of a problem. See, the high-Z inputs have a much higher impedance load capability than the XLR inputs on the back. At least that's the theory. I couldn't find any real hard technical specs to say how far the impedance will go on the XLRs on the back. Where this led me to thinking is, how big of a difference is it really between the High-Z on the front and the XLR on the back? Now, why would I even think to do that? Well, while I was tracking the album, I ran into a problem. My problem was that I love to use my HX stomp to hit the front side of these amplifier sims, and I like to use effects running into them. So sometimes I'll have like a, really dirty reverb effect, or maybe I'll have like a, a really dirty delay, or maybe I like to use a pedal to do a swell. And so since I have this little small rig here, what I would do is I would plug it into the High-Z. That worked fine, but I noticed there was a lot of noise from the cables that I was using. So all I had at the time was an XLR adapter. So I took the XLR adapter, I ran it out the back, and I plugged it into an XLR. Didn't think twice about it. I didn't even cross my mind that it could sound different than the High-Z input. And then one day, without even thinking about it, I pressed this little stereo link button because I wanted to run one of the amp sims in stereo. And I realized that I was plugged in on the XLR on the back, and I go, oh, holy crap, I think I just solved the problem. And then it got me thinking about the unison on the front side versus the unison on the back side, and now here we are in this video. I'm actually finally getting a chance to test this theory out. How much of a difference is it really gonna make if we have the same signal passing through the High-Z on the front versus the High-Z on the back? Well, that's what we're here to test. And the reason that we're gonna test this is because if I can run one of my channels out into the XLR on the back and hit stereo link, what that'll enable me to do is it'll allow me to run all of the soft tube guitar sim plugins in stereo. And being that I'm plugging my XLR into channel 1, that always feeds the stereo source as a mono source. So there should be theoretically no difference in sound. There is one problem. We have to set this up and set our test environment up for the null test. So what exactly do we have going on here? Okay, so I have my guitar feeding a mono input on my HX stomp, and then I've got the left output going to the XLR on mic input 1. Then I have the right signal going directly into the High-Z on the front. Now there is a difference in gain staging, so I had to compensate for that. And I've got it to as absolutely as close as possible, but it's not perfect. So let's actually start testing this now. So what exactly are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna do the null test. In order to do the null test, like I said, we're gonna split the signal up, and we're going to flip the phase of the same signal going into the same channel. So the theory is that if it's the exact same sound source and I flip the phase, one will cancel out the other and it'll just be totally muted. And I've matched this as perfectly as possible, and we're gonna see what we get. So we've got channel 1's the XLR, channel 2 is the High-Z. I've flipped the High-Z, and here's what just the XLR channel sounds like. There's no plugins, it's just straight guitar. Cool. All right, here's the High-Z. All right, cool. Together. It's gone. Okay, well, what happens when we put one of the plugins on it? Let's find out. So what we're going to do is run the Marshall Classic can hear it turn on. Here is just the XLR. I've just simply loaded them, I haven't done anything to them. Here is just the high Z. And here's them together. It's very weird. It's very weird. So you can hear as I unmute one of them, the signal goes away pretty much. There's a little bit left over. Now, we have to address that. There is a bit of a difference. And I'm assuming that that really is the unison tech that's peeking out. And so it got me thinking as I started playing around with it, is there a difference that I can hear? And so what I do is, I just jam. Mute one, mute the other. Sounds pretty close. Sounds pretty close. I would be grasping at straws to really, I don't have headphones on or anything, but I'd be grasping at straws just listening in the environment that I'm in. But I did start to notice a difference. And it's a feel difference, right? So as I start playing, let me see if I crank this up a bit. Okay, yeah, so whenever I start to play, my ears trick me and go, yeah, one sounds better. And I go, well, they don't really sound any different, so why does one sound better? And the more that I played, the more that I realized one felt better. And then that's really when my mind kind of opened up here. The high Z unison plug-in version, when you're playing through the high Z, it feels more like an amp and responds to your playing closer to that of an amp, and that actually impacts how you play it. While the end result doesn't necessarily sound different, what does sound different is your playing. Now, if you keep that in mind, then the solution that I'm about to show you, it's not really going to hinder you all too much. And if you're a consistent enough guitar player and you don't get affected by those things, you're never really going to think twice. At least I wouldn't think so. But the crazier thing is how some of these guitar sims had more of this null effect going on than others. And I thought that that was pretty cool. So we can now definitively say that, there is some real stuff under the hood, which I think is absolutely awesome. That's why we pay big money for these things. But that being said, let's go ahead and actually see how I would solve this problem. And now I know this has been a long-winded video, so I really appreciate you guys sticking with me, but the short answer here is what you would do is you'd have something that would give you an XLR or even a line in to your mic pre 1. So we just simply unplug this guy. So what you would do to solve this is just the plexi on the XLR input, and what I would do is just stereo link it. So if I right click, stereo link, cool. Bob's your uncle. It's literally that easy. And then, well, let's load up one that we can actually do it on. Here we go. Sweet. Doesn't get much easier than that. You just have to make sure that you're running your guitar through the back of your Apollo, either via an XLR or a line in. Now here's my theory as to why this was never proposed in any of the forums, is that for one thing, the unison tech that interacts with your high Z is not going to be able to be replicated on the backside, at least to a certain degree. It makes me really wonder what's going on back there when I do load one of these up, because it still shows unison. So Universal Audio, if you're watching this one, if you could tell me what's happening in the comments as to why it's still showing unison, that'd be pretty cool. But either way, the sound is almost identical. I mean, when I did the null test, as you could hear, there was a whole lot of stuff that was falling out, and we'll run that back. We'll do it one more time. We'll even record it in Luna so we can A/B them on the fly. But yeah, there was almost nothing there. But this solves the problem. You have to take a box, run it out the back, link it into stereo mode. There you go. The only people that might have solved this is whoever uses active DI boxes or passive DI boxes, say in a Pro Studio environment where you're miking up an amp in the corner, and then you want to send your signal directly into your DAW so you could reamp later, right? Maybe they came across this and didn't really think about it. But I think for most people who are used to just plugging into the front on their Apollo, that just blocks you out from doing anything stereo. So I think that's why this has never really been proposed anywhere else that I've seen. But that's the long and short of it. Have your guitar run into the back, stereo link your channels, pan to your heart's content. But let's just, for kicks, let's run back into Luna and track and really listen to any differences in real time. All right, so I have got what we've got here. We've got the Plexi Classic on both our channels. One's phase reversed. Phase is flipped on it. I'm just gonna play a simple pass. You can hear it. That's the leftover unison sound. Don't really know what's going on. But let's give it a listen as we play. And this will be the same exact signal on both sides. Let's see what happens. So the waveforms look quite similar. Let's look at this extra large. Waveforms look really similar, but obviously they're flipped. So one's going to go down, one's going to go up. You can see this represented here and here. You can also see that they're opposites right here. But let's listen to them one by one. Now the other one, this is the XLR. This is them together. It's just so crazy to me, but yeah, so just sonically bouncing A-Bing, I really can't tell a difference just listening to it. But again, I can feel a difference. So there you have it. Can't hear a difference, run it through the back, you'll be all set. So guys, thanks again for sticking with me to the end on this video. It's kind of been a bit of a rabbit hole, but again, we've gotten there, and hopefully you've kind of figured out how to do this here. Again, I'll reiterate, it's plug your guitar in the back on the mic input with, you know, either some sort of a pedal or, you know, maybe with a DI box. That'll enable the Apollo to be able to stereo link channels 1 and 2, which is how your plugin is going to be able to allow you to pan left and right, and that's how you get around the panning problem there. And you'll be able to record directly into your DAW, so there won't be any weird workarounds. It'll be a quicker workflow. And then again, listening to them, A-Bing them, not a big difference that you can hear. It's all in how you react to the amp and how you play. So that's really cool to know, and yeah, mind-blowing stuff. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on the next video.